Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Oh boy. That's right, it's party time, guys. What's going on, everybody? This is Critical Failure. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Coming up this week, a lot of van casting. It's been quite the week. Focus on Super Nintendo. That's the theme for the episode. However, I got some other surprises in store as well. As in, my Famicom package finally arrives, and that was quite the tale. Alright, so let's jump over to our first chiptune. This is from an album called Tropical-esque. It comes back on TCR every couple of years. Basically, this is a themed album that was released on Pterodactyl Squad. Unfortunately, I'm looking through the zip archive now, and I don't think it has the actual artist's name in it, which I think is a problem. Get on that guy. But head over to Pterodactyl Squad, Tropical-esque. It's a Star Tropics from the NES. It's a concept album based around Star Tropics. The song is called The Villagers Say Thank You. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Going back in time as we normally do, let's go to the van, not on Monday, not on Tuesday, but all the way to last Saturday. What? I am van casting on Saturday morning. It is 10:44 a.m. The sun is shining. I got the sunroof open. I'm driving over to my buddy's house. I'm feeling good, and I have the Panzer disconnected from all its tendrils and placed here in the van with me. So I have this weird hybrid moment where the two worlds collide, and I'm getting ready to go to my buddy's house, and we're going to play some local multiplayer via Steam. Very excited about it. Looking forward to playing some Street Fighter V. I fell deep into the Capcom trap and bought some skins for some random Street Fighter V characters. Looking forward to the local multi-battle. Let's see, my buddy mains Karine, and I main Armika. Those are the two that get the most play. And then my older brother mains Jury. So I got a couple of skins for all 3 of those characters. I'm really looking forward to it, man. I haven't had this kind of early Saturday morning vibe in a while. I'm usually going round and around with the kids at this point. This is kind of like a time I typically set aside for, we go outside and go around the block. The kids get to ride their bikes a little bit sometimes. A lot of times we, like color or something, depending on the weather. But this one weekend, I get to get away. I'm excited about it, man. Steam, if you curate your collection right, can have a really strong local multiplayer presence. One game I'm looking forward to playing is Duck Game. Duck Game I played a little bit with my son, and it's good, man. It is very good. Never played it online. Actually, I'm not so sure I'd be interested in playing it online unless it was with like my core bros, like Darabka or Death Adder or Alex Swingle or any of those guys. Any of you guys pick up Duck Game, I'll be up for a game with you, but I wouldn't play that with randos. I don't know. If you take a game that is supposed to look a little bit and feel a little bit like Smash Brothers, I can't help but remember what the online multiplayer was like in Smash Brothers Brawl. Let me tell you guys, it wasn't good. I don't know what the modern one is like, but there's no... They didn't want any voice chat support. I mean, the Wii didn't have anything like that I know of. It was just a lot of doing the taunt over and over again for no real reason. A lot of just like characters going to opposite sides of the map and then just making noises. Specifically that noise Pit used to make when he would spin his bow. I haven't played that game in a long time. Well, there's several games like that now on Steam that are kind of trying to copy that vibe a little bit. And I think the imprint that experience left on me caused me to, only want to play those games online with people I know. Especially since I don't know if I ever got to do that in Brawl. I played Brawl local multi a couple of times, but the Wii had this friend code system that was just too much for me. I added my one friend who had the game, and he was like, well, I'm never really on. So it was not this kind of experience where, excuse me, I could log on and just see if he was on, and if he was, we'd be ready to go. In order to do that, I'd have to like call him outside of the Wii ecosystem and set it up. Man, it takes me back thinking about the Wii online multiplayer features. How it had this like weird message board system where you would like post in the lower right hand side of the screen. You had access to this little wall you could post notes on, and supposedly there was a way to send notes to your friends, but I never worked it out. I want to know, for those of you guys who have a Wii U, anybody, I mean, you guys have a Wii U? I don't know if anybody who listens to this has one, but did they make the multiplayer ecosystem any better in more modern Nintendo systems? What's it like on the Switch, I wonder? I don't know. I don't know. I just wish I had footage of like cruising the Me channel, which is now shut down. The derelict of the Wii multiplayer features, right? When I turn on the Wii now and I see those channels, like the news channel and the weather channel that are just shut down, it's like walking through Pripyat over by Chernobyl, right? It's just like all of the chairs have been left there, and the dressers and the dinner tables, but they're overturned and overgrown and haven't been touched by humans in many years. That's what I see when I turn the Wii on right now. I was talking to my kids about it because I like Bubble Bobble, but I haven't bought it on the Nintendo yet. I have not added Bubble Bobble to my NES collection, so I was thinking about dusting off the Wii because I still have the Wii version of Bubble Bobble. The WiiWare version of Bubble Bobble. It's my favorite way to play it. I've said it on this podcast many, many times. Talked about dusting it off, and I don't know. The weird part, I think what makes this story even weirder is that while all this was happening, the Wii has never been disconnected from my television. It still remains connected in my main family room, because long after I stopped playing it, the kids continued to play New Super Mario Bros. Wii, which is now no longer the New Super Mario Bros. Game. But yeah, so that it's not like I have that barrier of, oh, I have to hook it up, and I'm too lazy to do that. It's still hooked up. I literally just have to take the controllers out of a box that's by the TV and sit down on the couch and play. Seems like it's so close, right? I think it might be worth adding that the kids make that dynamic a little harder, because if I sit down to play with something, especially a video game, the kids are going to want it. I wonder how much that is in. Just that sentence right there. I mean, a lot of my gaming for the past, 7 years has really revolved around that fact. It really has. There is a Humble Bundle deal right now that includes a bunch of PS3 games for very cheap, and I have a PS3 that has a lot of hard drive space on it, and I probably am not going to take advantage of it because I just am not in a place where I can sit down on my couch and play, a Borderlands game and have the kids just be alright, just doing their thing and be like, oh look, Dad's playing a game, alright, I guess I'll go back to whatever I'm doing. Or, hey, let's play together. No. That's just not what it's like. Not for me, not right now. No, I play the PC games, so I have, if I want to access them, I could do that from any one of my 3 computers. That sort of thing. I'm having like a pivotal moment where I'm thinking hard about console games and wondering how, if they're still as bad as I've thought. You know what? Yes, they are. The moment's over. They're still bad. I'm sorry, modern consoles are still bad. Do you know why? I'm going to tell you why. I was thinking about this the other day. Because 20 years ago, we used to buy a console with this mentality. I can't wait to buy a Super Nintendo because owning a Super Nintendo is going to be awesome. That's what we used to think. Or Sega Genesis, if that was your thing. Can't wait to own a Sega. Owning a Sega is going to be awesome. That's the way I felt about it. Now, if I were to buy a console, it'd be like, well, I really want to play Bayonetta 2, so I guess I have to have a Wii U to do it. Well, I really want to play this game, but it's an exclusive of the Xbox ecosystem, so I guess I'm going to have to go with that one. That's the companies are getting the edge by using exclusivity, which makes all of us consumers lose. And that is the reason. That's the reason that I have a difficult time. Even like, it's funny, even like thinking happily about retro consoles, that bitterness towards that reality still kind of pangs in my side. Like collecting Famicom games and playing my NES again. Does that mean I love Nintendo? No, it doesn't. I do not. Sorry. Especially now since I work in IT and I have just like a sneakity peekity at how the sausage is made. I know that there's meetings where they collectively decide to remove consumer rights. And it just drives me crazy. So how far are we? Wow, almost 10 minutes. 10 minutes into my Saturday morning vancast, which I didn't think was going to happen. Looking over at the Panzer, just sitting there under a sweater. I'm hoping beyond hope it doesn't like clank around in my car, because that would be terrible. And you know what? I drove right past the 7-Eleven. I was going to stop and get some coffee because I haven't had any coffee today. But I guess that's not going to be what happens on this Saturday morning. So get ready for some gaming with a pounding headache. Alright, boys and girls. I'm on the weekend. This is my time. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to get back to it. I'll see you guys either Monday morning or Tuesday morning for the typical start of the week Vancast. I hope your weekends are going equally awesome. Safe and sound back in Panzer Studios. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. This track is called Zelda's Got a Techite Ass. And it's from Leave Luck to Hell. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. right, let's take a few minutes just to thank a few people. Just to let you guys know, Tiger Claw Radio is a Patreon-supported program. If you want to subscribe to the Patreon, I give the supporters early access to the shows, just as a courtesy. Monday's the normal release day for everyone, but I typically record Friday night, and as soon as it's done, I throw it up on Patreon for the supporters to get yourself a copy of the MP3 just a little bit early. Also, I like to give a direct thank you to the gentlemen who keep the lights on, keep me coming back week after week, and they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, Six Health of Fury, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys very much, and I hope you feel like you're getting your money's worth. Let's go back to the Vancast and do some more TCR. It is Monday morning. You know, I don't think I'm going to do too much Vancasting this Monday morning. Bright and early, 6:25. With a little bit damp air this morning. It has rained the past couple days. Not raining now, but we still have the humidity. Not going to do too much Vancasting since we had that Saturday session, but there was a couple of quick things I wanted to go over. This episode, I really wanted to focus on the Super Nintendo. The whole Famicom, waiting on the Famicom games business, I don't know how long that's going to go on. But that has brought me back to those consoles from back in the day that I kind of drifted away from for a lot of years. So my Super Nintendo, both of them, because I have two now, are both put away. But I've been kind of going over some of my most important Super Nintendo memories in my head. I thought I'd share a couple of them with you. Import games. I mean, we talk about import games, got Famicom stuff coming in, but I think the first import game I ever saw live running was on the Super Nintendo. A friend of mine got himself a copy of, I think it's Valis 4. Valis series of like side-scrollers where you have like a warrior Catholic schoolgirl with a sword, but it ends up being pretty solid side-scrolling with a melee weapon. Some neat art, some neat games, and the first one I saw was running on a Super Nintendo. Now, if you open up the cartridge slot of a Super Nintendo and look down, there's two pieces of plastic that jut out just behind the contacts. What I didn't know until later in life was that these are essentially the region coding. So you can get in there with a pair of pliers, just break them off, and a Super Famicom cart will slide right in. Well, my buddy didn't know that when we were kids. So what he did was he broke open this cartridge of Valis and he slid the raw circuit board with no casing into the slot, and it worked. It's kind of a gory way to go about handling your games these days, but you know, we were kids. He was still learning about the way these things worked, and even then he knew a heck of a lot more than I did. So that was the first import game I ever really experienced in real life, you know, not including any kind of emulation or ROMs or anything like that. I don't even think I knew about ROMs until a couple years later on down the line. So that is a game that I would like to acquire for my Super Nintendo collection. I haven't bought a Super Nintendo game in quite a while. That, I think I want to get Tetris Attack is an important game for us in my family. I have Tetris Attack on the Super Nintendo. Many years ago, when Tetris Attack first came out, they had the kiosk at the Toys R Us where you could go and play. And my older brother and I would go down to Toys R Us and we would just hang out for hours to play the kiosk. They had that thing up for many different games over the years, but Tetris Attack has the distinction of being the only game we ever said, let's go down to Toys R Us and play that specific game on the kiosk. And we did that a lot. It was fun. It was good. It was good times. I wonder, thinking about it now, I wonder if that might have been the last important vertical puzzle game. I'm not saying it was the last vertical puzzle game like Tetris that worked out of a tube, not by a long shot, but I think it might have been the last one that felt like it was mainstream and big to us. Bejeweled didn't come around until much later, and even still, that was never as important to me, not even now. So Tetris Attack was big. I got a copy of that. So one import game I'd kind of like to have is Panel Daepon, the Japanese version. As for American Super Nintendo titles, the last ones I ever bought were I bought Wing Commander and Wing Commander Secret Missions. This was like 5 years ago or more. Now, I like Wing Commander, especially those early MS-DOS games. The Super Nintendo one's kind of sketchy. The controller really just needs more buttons in order to make that fly. But it was cool to see how they did it. It's ported over pretty well, actually. A lot of PC games that were ported back and forth from consoles in those days came out not great, but they did a pretty good job. There is a game called Spectre that I had on MS-DOS, which was a Battlezone clone. My dad had it when we were kids. He had like a shareware version, and then later in life, my dad took us to a software store. I can't remember where. And he found a copy of a full version of Spectre in the big box on the shelf. And he was like, hey kids, we're going to get this, and we'll have the full version with all sorts of fun things added to it. We walked around the store for a while, and eventually he looked at the box and realized he was holding the Mac version. He was like, this isn't going to play for us. I have to put this back. And I remember being crushed. I was crushed. Like, no! We were going to get Spectre! I liked that game. Fast forward to later in life, I come to realize there was a version of Spectre, that same game, on the Super Nintendo. I've played the ROM. For Super Nintendo games, not bad, especially for a Battlezone clone. Very playable. I don't know how great it would be if you have no connection to the game, like if you have no memory of Spectre, no nostalgic connection like I do. Don't know how much it would hold up in that situation, but but I enjoy it, and it comes in at a low price point. The last time I looked it up, it was $5, but that was many years ago. I don't know what it is now. The thing that worries me about Super Nintendo is that it's at the forefront of retro collectionism. So a lot of the games that are how do I put this? A lot of the really core games worth owning are just out of this world in terms of price. Try going to get a copy of Super Metroid now. I'm lucky that I have several of those core games just left over from when I was a kid getting games in the wild. I got a copy of A Link to the Past. I got a copy of Super Mario World, Tetris Attack. I got a copy of Yoshi's Island, even though I'm not a big fan of that game. I would like to get SOS. That's a game I would like to get in physical form. SOS was a game that was created by the same people who created the original Clock Tower. It's a side-scrolling adventure game where you play, you're in an ocean liner, like a cruise ship that capsizes and is now upside down. If you've ever seen the movie Poseidon, or the Poseidon Adventure? Poseidon Adventure, right? Poseidon was the cheesy remake that came years later. The Poseidon Adventure, that movie. It's that movie, the game. There you go. Pretty neat, very grim. Every time I play it, it ends in death. I also have an intense fear of large ships, so that kind of emphasizes the point for me personally when I play it. So it's a good one. It used to go for like $20 to $25. I can only imagine what it goes for now. Now that nerds on the internet talk, gotta get this game, gotta put it on the shelf and never play it. I don't know. But that is a game I would like to own, given unlimited resources. And then we have games like Chrono Trigger and whatnot. Try getting a Super Nintendo copy of Chrono Trigger now. But, that aside, I think that bitters me on the system a little bit. How hard it is to obtain a lot of the games that I really remember from being a kid. But that aside, I had some great memories of the Super Nintendo. When I was very young, before the Super Nintendo came out, I remember playing my Nintendo with my older brother, and they were trying to explain to me what they had read in Nintendo Power. Nintendo Power had released some sort of announcement about the Super Nintendo, and it was read by my older brothers and kind of put through the filter of their childlike minds, and they tried to relay it to me, who also had a very childlike mind. This is the way they said it. They didn't say anything about another system. They explained that Nintendo was going to start making something called super cartridges. I was like, well, what does that mean? Well, they said, first of all, that means they're going to be able to talk, which is unheard of, in 1990 or 91 or whenever that was. The games will be able to talk, and this is how they tried to explain. I remember distinctly. This is my older brother Paul. This is how he tried to explain the jumping graphics between Nintendo and Super Nintendo. He turned on Saved by the Bell. You guys remember that show? Now in the theme song to Saved by the Bell, when they're flashing, the cast and all that stuff, there's like confetti in the background. It's like little swirls and little strips of confetti. He pointed to one of the pieces of confetti that looked like a zigzag, like a set of stairs, and he said, "All right, man, this is how I explain it. If this zigzag was a straight line on the Nintendo, this curve would be that same straight line on a Super cartridge." It's like, whoa, man, that blew my mind. It did. And that was the first time I had ever heard that there would be any kind of successor to the standard NES games that we had been enjoying up to that point in our lives. So I have to look back at the time when a teacher popped a test and I knew I was in a mess, and I have to wonder if it lived up to my expectations. I think as a kid it did. I think some of the super expensive games now I didn't play until later in life. I didn't really dig Chrono Trigger until later in life. But we played a lot of Super Mario World. There was a racing game we played as a kid called Stunt Race FX. At that time, they just introduced the Super FX microchip, which allowed a little bit more intense 3D polygonal gaming. So we had like the original Star Fox adopted this graphic style that we had seen on MS-DOS before, but not really on consoles. So I can only think of 3 games that had that, where they had this on the label. It said, FX microchip, or contains the FX chip or something. One was the original Star Fox. One was this game called Vortex, where you played in a mech, and then one was Stunt Race FX. Those are the 3. Buy this game because it has this piece of technology in it, games. And Stunt Race FX, I think to me, is a prime example of a game I remember so fondly, but then going back to play it now, it ruins the memory of how things were. It's a racing game. It had local multi-split screen in an arena where you went to collect things. It was good. It was quirky. The cars had little eyes on them. I don't know. I remember it very well. But going back to play it now, the frame rate is just atrocious. We're talking like maybe 15 frames a second, something like that. The kind of thing where if you saw it on a computer, you'd be like, Alt F4 out immediately because this is unplayable. Somehow, though, as kids, we were just like, I guess that's how the game is. Let's just go with it. And it was fine. I got a legit copy later in my teen years, when I was probably like 18 or 19. I was just like, memory equals ruined. Let's see, what else do I remember about the Super Nintendo from when I was young? Pit Fighter. I think Pit Fighter was a game that I remember sitting down with my brother, and we were like, okay, we know what these Super Nintendo cartridges can do at this point. We know just how much content you can pack into a Super Nintendo cartridge. And we would play Pit Fighter, and we'd be like, there has to be more than this to this game. There's no way they could release a Super Nintendo cartridge and just put this in it. Little did we know. I think that was our first experience with, I want to say a doo-doo game, although people have told me later in life, hey, it's Pit Fighter, it is what it is. I don't know. At that time, we thought it was a doo-doo game. At that time, we thought all the Super Nintendo games were going to be really robust, with lots of features and secrets and content, things like that. We didn't know that there would be an entire game that consists of 5 minutes of the shirtless men slapping each other. Oh man, the Super Nintendo. So I got a hold of a Super Nintendo in my early teen years that experienced yellowing early on, when yellowing was first like a thing. And in the back of this machine, where you plug in the AC adapter, the plastic peg in the middle broke off. So in its place, there are just two exposed prongs that receive the power. It still will function, but I have to be really careful about that AC adapter because it'll fall right out. So that's my old Super Nintendo. And then one day, I have a video about this up on my channel. I was at the thrift store. Lo and behold, $15. There's a Super Nintendo. No yellowing at all. Beautiful system. $15. Picked it up, brought it home. I was sure something was going to be wrong with it. I don't know why a system would just show up clean like that for $15. But it worked. I don't know. To this day, now I have two Super Nintendos. So, I have my old beat up one, but the thing is, that old beat up one, I don't feel like I can just let it go in favor of the new one, the newish one, because it was also one I had, for many, many years at this point. So that's pretty cool, having more than one. I just at first when I brought it home, I was like, yes, that's $75. I'll sell it on the eBay. Some collector will be able to get a hold of it. I'll make a little money. I'll undercut all the dealers so that it'll move quick, and some buyer will get a deal, and everybody will be happy. But after it sat for just like a week or so, I suddenly realized that Super Nintendo wasn't going anywhere, and it sure hasn't. These days, it's been a while since I played my Super Nintendo. It's been the way I have my area set up now. My CRT is really small, and it's on top of a dresser. I really only have room for one system next to it, and that system lately has been my NES. It has been for probably about a year now. So I don't know. I think maybe thinking about it now, maybe a Super Nintendo would be a good candidate to finally get an EverDrive. I don't own an EverDrive for any system. I do own a flash cart for the original Game Boy, but it's not EverDrive, and it has an antiquated ROM loading system. So I would have to boot up my old computer to change the ROMs on it. I've got like a 10 ROM set that you pick off of a screen, and that's really kind of what I'm set with on that thing. So maybe the Super Nintendo would be a good candidate for the EverDrive. Just get one on there, and then just enjoy every crazy expensive ROM, and just not worry about paying whatever the obscene amount is that they charge you in the Wii ecosystem, or the Wii U ecosystem, or the Switch or 3DS or whatever it is. They're trying to make me repurchase games that I've owned for years and years and years. Maybe that's it. I've got a good collection for the NES. I feel like I don't need the EverDrive for the NES. Sega, same kind of deal. Sega's got a lot of expensive games, but my collection is solid. My Super Nintendo collection, not so much. I got a few games, but not many. It's pretty, compared to my other collections, it's pretty weak. So that's it. Super Nintendo is another one I haven't thought about in a long time. So I set out, we'll just talk about the Super Nintendo for 5 minutes. We'll go over the we'll go over the first time I ever played an import game, and that'll be that. But the flood doors kick open. I remember the good old days, and that's the magic of retro gaming. But it feels good. It feels good. It puts me in a good place, especially now on Monday morning driving to work. Those are some good times to have in my head. Exploring all that with my brothers when we were young and impressionable, and having a piece of our childhood that turned out well for us. In those moments, life was really good. It really was. And so that's what I'll leave you with on this Monday morning Vancast. Golly, I'm 20 minutes in, which means I've got already a half an hour of Vancasting for this week. Before I let you go, last night I stayed up late so I could record the Monster Cast bit with Jerry Terrifying. We got about an hour 15, which is good because I'll have to edit it down heavily. We're going to try and remove all the politics out of it because we got into politics discussions, and that's not really what I want to do on the air. But that should be good. I feel like it was strong enough to build a Monster Cast on. And so I will get to work getting more stuff together. And I'll get back with you and let you know how it goes. Let's go back to Panzer Studios. Back safe and sound in Panzer Studios, but wait, there's more. Oh yeah, one more thing about the Super Nintendo. First Super Nintendo game I think I ever played at home was Gradius 3. That's what we got with our machine. Gradius 3 and maybe the Super Mario World pack-in. Gradius 3 is amazing, especially the part where you get into the water and the music changes and the water looks super realistic, or at least it looked realistic back in the day. Love Gradius 3, probably my favorite side-scrolling shmup. It's punishingly hard, there's better games out there, but talk about a personally important game, man. Gradius 3 is what it's all about. That's it, boys and girls. That song is called Congo from Mongo Def. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. You know what? We're 44 minutes in, but I have a good amount of vancasting left. I did a lot this week, and it's not going to be any good next week. So why don't we just go ahead and go through it, and we'll call it a deluxe episode. All right. So let's return. I really did too much. I'm sorry. Let's return to the vancast for just a little bit more. Tiger Claw Radio. You know what? It's Wednesday morning. I got some more stuff to go over. Let's do some more vancast. I'm okay with TCR being a bit on the long side this weekend. I don't hear too many complaints about TCR being too long. So if I got more stuff to go over, I feel like I can. I kind of wanted to focus on the Super Nintendo this episode, so I had a couple of memories that cropped up early in the morning as I was getting out of bed. I just had these kind of, these sort of flashback moments. See, my mother growing up didn't approve of video games. She thought, it wasn't that she thought they were, altogether poisonous, but I would say that she didn't like our interest in video games. So there was only a couple of instances, really, over the decades where she bought any games for us. My mom and dad picked out our original introduction to the Nintendo. Christmas 1988, they bought the Nintendo, I think it was the Action Pack or Adventure Pack, whatever you call it. The one that came with a zapper and Mario and Duck Hunt that a lot of kids had at that time. They brought that home. I don't remember them ever buying us another video game until much, much later. One Christmas, in the middle of the Super Nintendo era, my mother bought 2 Super Nintendo games complete in box, and she gave them, she wrapped them up for me and my older brother, and they didn't have names on them. So the idea was, on Christmas morning, we could reach out for a package, and whichever one was the one that we ended up with opening, that was the one that belonged to you. Now, I don't remember exactly what year this was, but I do remember that at that time, our primary PC gaming existed on computers that did not have sound cards, all right? So early, we'll get to how that relates in just a moment. Any gaming you did on a computer was done with a PC speaker. So the Super Nintendo was distinct in that we really enjoyed the sound capabilities of it. It was something that we could do when we sat down on a console, and we could enjoy games with good sound in a way that we didn't have on the PC. So my older brother and I opened our cartridges. Now, my game was a game called New Horizons Uncharted Waters, or Uncharted Waters 2 New Horizons. These days, you look back on it, and that's an amazing game. I wasn't quite on board when I first opened it. Okay, there's a ship on the box. We'll see how it goes. And my older brother opened his box, and inside it was Doom for the Super Nintendo. Still makes me laugh thinking about it. The amount of salt. I can't begin to let you know. Now, these days, you look at Doom for the Super Nintendo, and it was, in fact, an inferior port. I mean, the graphics were grainy. Never mind that certain levels were omitted. You could not access episode 2 or 3 unless you played on harder difficulties or went ahead and beat episode 1 in its entirety first. These things aside, again, we played Doom on a computer with no sound card. So this was, I think, the first time I had ever experienced Doom's real soundtrack. It was the first time I ever experienced first time for sure. And the Super Nintendo, of all the problems that Doom had on the Super Nintendo, that was one thing it did very, very well. And thus, as we look back on the years, that is looked at as a black sheep of the Doom ports. But I remember it as a great game. Doom on the Super Nintendo. Not to mention that bright red cartridge it came on. It was pretty sweet, boys and girls, I tell you. Even with the textures missing that were removed to save space. I enjoyed it very much. So that's my Super Nintendo story. I haven't done much with the Super Nintendo in a few years. It was our go-to system, maybe 6-7 years ago. Longer ago than that. I guess longer ago than that. My wife and I were playing a lot of Tetris Attack, but once we moved to Pokemon Puzzle League on the Wii, the Super Nintendo stopped getting a lot of shine in my house. So after these SNES bits, I think I might trace down a couple of the less or expensive titles that I do not own. And while we're on the subject of purchasing things, let's go back to the Famicom for just a bit. Now, I don't want to spend too long on this because it's really been the focus of TCR the past couple of weeks. However, something happened yesterday in that story that really broke my heart. The converter finally showed up. It never came to my door. What happened was the United States Postal Service website, when I looked up the tracking number, said that it was a failed delivery and the package was sitting at the post office. Alright, so I drove down to the post office after work yesterday, and sure enough, it was there. It never would have made it to my house. It was not out for delivery. It was sitting for pickup. And the post office never made any attempt to let me know. Now, this sort of thing, it typically happens if you order something internationally and nobody is at the door to pick it up when they drop it off. Sometimes they'll leave a slip saying, hey, we missed you. This is the address of the post office it's at. Come get it. It was a weird situation, but I got it and I brought it home. And let's cut to the chase. It didn't work. I don't know what the deal is. I looked up online how these things tend to work because I'm aware that when it comes to these adapters, you got to make sure everything's plugged in the right way. You can't put your Famicom cartridge upside down, that sort of thing. So before you say it, I tried them every which way and nothing would read. And it broke my heart. I was continually getting the black blinking screen. It's the screen you get when you try and turn on your Super Nintendo with no cartridge in it. So I've ordered all these Famicom games, and now I don't have anything that will play them. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do yet. But I'm committed now. I've got even more of them coming in the mail. So I haven't decided what I'm gonna do, but that happened. I opened it up. I opened up the converter because it was just held together by simple basic screws. And I don't know how much I can tell from looking at it. What I was thinking was happening was I put the converter into the system, and it wasn't going into the cartridge like the actual. It wasn't making contact with the pins for some reason. That was one theory. Another theory is when I look at the bare circuit board, all I see is contacts and the reader. When I look at them online, typically there's a big computer chip on one side of it. I would imagine to interface with the lockout chip on the SNES, or not the SNES, the NES, so that it'll read. But there's no chip like that present on this thing. So I can think of two possible reasons why it's not working. One, it's not making contact, and two, it's being bounced by the lockout chip, which is why it's behaving like there's no cartridge present. The only thing I can think left to do is to just strip off the casing and try it as a bare circuit board. I ran out of time. I wasn't able to do that last night, so we'll see if that works. But assuming it does, that's not the way I'm going to be able to play my collection. I'm not going to be hot swapping cartridges quickly, a little of this game, a little of that game, with a bare circuit board. That's just not going to work. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. It was a huge bummer. I can't stress this enough how much this rocked my gaming world. In a time where this was the thing that got me back into consoles. And it just Just didn't do what it was supposed to do. I mean, that's it. Yeah. So that's really where I'm at. So once that happened, I spent all the extra time I had gaming, which is really just this morning, playing Carmageddon. I picked up Carmageddon 2, and that really terrible one, Carmageddon TCL 2000. I don't know if those are the letters or not. And that one is just straight terrible. I got a couple of the Carmageddon games. All of the ones excluding the brand new one. And I've been playing those. And enjoying them very much. So as of right now, as of right this second, my foray into to re-enter into console games has been a total failure. Total failure. And I don't know. I'm gonna have to buy something else that can play console games, or Famicom games. Or just go back to my Super Nintendo, because I know that works. At any rate, I'll get to it and report back. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. After that happened with the Famicom, and I tried that adapter in all kinds of different ways. I took it apart and put the circuit board back in upside down, and it's not going. Well, anyway, after that happened, I had a few more games show up in the mail, and I have more still that I've ordered that have yet to arrive. And they are. We'll call this On the Desk. I used to do a segment called On the Desk, and the idea was I needed to talk about console games on the podcast because I was hoping to get some kind of sponsorship. And in order to force me to do that, I would just talk about whatever games happened to be sitting on my desk at the time. Wasn't a review per se. It was just, this is what I've got. This is what I remember about it. Maybe it would be a review, maybe not. It was on the desk. Now, I stopped doing it for a couple of reasons. Primarily because my desk is no longer in the common living area of my family. So games don't sort of come and go like they used to. Also, I have no, especially with Patreon, I don't have any aspirations to have a sponsorship at this point. If you're a game developer, let me know. I'd love to review your game for a review copy, but companies keep your money because, especially since the people I know who have gotten sponsors, it has changed their content. I don't like the idea of saying, well, I can't talk bad about this topic or that topic because it'll upset the sponsors. No, I don't. I don't have to worry about that. So that's one of the reasons I haven't done this in a long time. So On the Desk, Famicom Edition. Here we go. I got Tetris for the Famicom. Nice red label. Good looking game. I really wish I could play that. I have a game with a Rasselman on it, and I don't know what game this is. I got it. It says Tecmo on it. Definitely a Tecmo game. I bought it thinking it was going to be pro wrestling for the NES. I don't know. I don't think that's what it is, but some kind of wrestling game. This is one I really wanted to play. The Tower of Druaga from Namco. And it's great because Namco, the Japanese Namco games on the Famicom, they have a T at the end of the name, so it's Namcot in Japan for some reason. Don't know why. Also, this particular game, I never played until I got a Namco collection on the DS, and it was like, hey, this old classic that I had never heard of, and I played it long after the fact, and I liked it. So I got it on Famicom. I kind of wish I could play it. I can't. Oh well. Next we have Legend of Kage, which from what I understand is almost identical to the American game. The art is really cool because the Japanese artwork, the games that did have artwork, tend to blow the American artwork away in most cases. This is one of those cases. It was a low price point game. I have the American Nintendo game. I kind of was looking forward to also having the Japanese game. I bought it in a single purchase from a same dealer on the eBay, so they wanted 99 cents for the cart and then another $1 for shipping. So $2, throw that in there. And then the last one, which I'm really bummed I couldn't play, is Nintendo Pinball. I don't know if I have that American Nintendo game or not, but this is a beautiful bright yellow lightning bolt cartridge, and I seem to remember that the Japanese version having something that was not in the American version. And I don't remember what, and I'd have to consult Wikipedia to find out. But some kind of bonus game. Like, you're probably familiar with, if you get the ball in the right hole, there's this little bonus game where there's the princess walking around on the top, and Mario is holding like a girder over his head to bounce the pinball, and you move Mario left and right. Some additional game like that existed on the Japanese card. I don't know what. I have it here, I can't play it. So that's it. We're looking at 5 Famicom cartridges that I can't play. I've got 2 more coming in the mail. Two of the Neketsu games. I was a big fan of River City Ransom growing up. And Tecmos Japan used that character style in a lot of games. I bought a couple of those games. All this stuff. I've got all of it. I can't play any of it. None of it. I can't play any of it. And I don't know what I'm going to do. Really don't know. But I had to kind of all put it aside. So it's going to go in a box, and I'm going to deal with it at a later date. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do. I don't know what happened, but I recorded a few minutes to introduce the fail bag, and the footage just died on me. It just got really fuzzy, and I didn't notice it. Okay, so let's do it again. We're going to the fail bag, guys. This is the part where we get to really enjoy the benefit of being a small show. It's really just me and you guys, and that's fine. The last episode got 22 hits on YouTube. It usually gets the equivalent of that over on VidMe on the nextround.network. .net. Oh, nextround.network. Wow. Get a couple on Podomatic. It usually adds up to around 40 to 50 hits per episode. Really underground. This is the underground of talking about video games or whatever. So anybody who wants to reach me usually can. If you have anything you want read on the air, if you just got some comments, there's a couple ways to do it. If you have my personal email address, just put what? Oh gosh, I don't. If you have my personal email address, put failbag in the subject line so that I know that it's okay to be read on the air. Other than that, we've got the YouTube comments. That's a great way to get a hold of me. Or any one of the blogs that's posted on the nextround.net, or you got tigerclawtv.com or anything like that. Any of those places. So this week we got a big long one from Hemrock. And we've also got something from Death Adder. Let's start with Death Adder first, because I think we're really going to have to take time and break down Hemrock's email. So, heading over to YouTube, which reminds me, YouTube changed its layout again. Again, really? They made it look uglier, but functionally the same, and they removed the My Channel link from the left-hand side and put it on the right side. So, wow. Yeah, open a VidMe channel if you haven't already, guys. Death Adder writes, even suggesting the idea I might be Canadian was worse than when Sergeant Slaughter turned his back on America to become an Iraqi sympathizer. I currently reside in Biscuit Gravy, South Carolina, within these United States. These colors don't run. I drove up to D.C., then took a small Launchpad McQuack plane up to Canada, spit on their soil, and then took a Canadian plane to Japan. I was surprised that they had planes too. I am home safe and sound, although I did catch a bad case of yellow fever on my trip. Yeah, I'd grab a chicken sandwich with you. That'd be pretty cool. I've been up to D.C. a couple of times before, and I could always alert you when I return. I'm a pretty normal guy with 0 murders on my record. I haven't played Doom 2 in a bit, but I still have Doom 1 on my Xbox via backwards compatibility that I bought and played a few months back. It still rules. Yeah, man, Doom, what made Doom is still, I think, still applies. So games made that like that could rock, I think. I think that's the evidence that points to. Come on back to DC anytime. We'll go get some food. We can go to IHOP, get some pancakes. That sounds really good right about now. Let's head over to... Here we go. This came in 6 days ago from Hemrock. This is a big one, guys. Buckle up. Hey, CF. Thanks a bunch for reading my email and answering my many questions. I enjoy your show. I enjoy how your show is interactive with the listeners. So I tried out Wizardry 5, and I spent a fair amount of time re-rolling characters. The highest bonus I ever saw was 26 or 27, and that only happened once, unfortunately. I set up a party according to your specifications: fighter, cleric, thief, mage, wizard. However, it was really difficult for me to get into the game. Hang on a second. I'm going to blow up the email. so that the text is bigger and make it a little easier to read. It was really difficult for me to get into the game. Okay, I got lost, got killed again. I didn't feel like I was making much progress. Maybe this title's just not for me. Or maybe not now. Since I was still in an RPG mood that day, I turned on the game. I turned to a game I had on my radar for a while now, and that's Heroes Realm. It's an RPG Maker game, and a very good one at that. It feels like a Final Fantasy V, which is a huge plus in my book, because that's one of my favorite Final Fantasy games. You had several classes to choose from at the start, and can gain improved classes as you progress. There's weapons, spells, armor, hidden items, even quests. Pretty much all the standard RPG fare is here, plus more. Feels like I'm playing an actual old-school Final Fantasy game. The best part is that it's free. Just search Heroes Realm RPG Maker. The only downside is I've not been able to get it to play well in Linux. It boots up, but the font is difficult to read, and the music does not work. So I just play it on my Windows XP machine, and it runs like a champ. Alright. CF here, we're going to take a break so we can address this Wizardry 5 comments here. But I tell you what, we're going to do it properly. Ah, yes, the heart of the Maelstrom. Wizardry 5. The perfect storm of classic computer role-playing games and Super Nintendo with its music at its very, very best. Auto mapping to prevent the difficulty of having to write down coordinates, beautiful textures that didn't exist in the original. Indeed, the perfect storm of excruciatingly difficult role-playing. So how did you die? How did you deal with it? First and foremost, when it comes to Wizardry 5, there's a couple things you need to be aware of. Everyone dies in Wizardry. It happens. We have the Temple of Cant to deal with that. Just head on back to town and any dead party member can be resurrected for a fee. Death is not final. First, and also, you should be aware that no one levels up in the field in Wizardry. It's not Final Fantasy. You gotta go back to the inn and rest. Rest. Acquire, meditate on your knowledge and acquire levels of experience. Purchase new equipment at Boltex Trading Post. You can do this, Hemrock. The perfect storm indeed. I get it that it's not for everybody, though. It's still a Wizardry game, and most people don't like those. I do, though. I also think it's worth mentioning that in order to look at a map, you need to have the spell. It's a cleric spell called Dumapic. Something about the spells. The spells was how the old Wizardry games did their copy protection. That's why they have weird names and they don't tell you what they do. You really have to try them out. Level up the cleric, which you're not going to be able to do if you don't sleep at the inn. Get the Dumapic spell. Then you'll be able to, kind of figure out where you're going. Cleric also learns a light spell, so you can see further down the corridor, which is another big one. I love that game. I love that game. It's a great game, but it's okay if you can't get into it. It's fine. You found what is it? Heroes Realm. So you seem to have come across something that is scratching that RPG itch. Wizardry 5 has been around a long, long time, and it's still going to be here if you want to give it a try in another 10 years. Let's get back to the email. Hemrock writes, on top of that game, I also booted up a few blasts from the past. I turned on Super Crate Box, another awesome free game. You mentioned Atari in the last episode because they're easy to pick up and play. Well, as you know, a game like of Super Crate Box can only last a minute or two. And like the Atari games, I couldn't help myself, so I gave it a go. Wait. Hang on a second. Why am I slurring this together? I'm slurring all these lines together, and something... They blow up real big. Maybe it's because it's tightly spaced. I don't know. I read that really wrong. Let's try it again. Well, as you know, a game of Super Crate Box may only last a minute or two, and like Atari games, are great when you don't have much time to spare. You also mentioned Cycross. I couldn't help myself. I gave it a go. Probably the first time I really sat down and played it in over 5 years. Man, I forgot how fun and frustrating that game is. The best score I could get today was 104,200. Let me know if you're up for a high score challenge on this one. CF here. I would be up for it. That is one of the Famicom games I purchased, and I have no way to play Famicom games at this time. I'm still interested in playing it, so I'll have to dig up the ROM or something. Check back with me next week. I'll see if I can get a Cycross score for the next TCR. Let's get back to the email. Dr. Mario is a great puzzle game. Probably a good one for the kids, too. As you mentioned, your son was playing it. What does your son think about NES games? That's awesome that you got an email from Carl. I hope he can make it back on the Monstercast. Speaking of the Monstercast, since Death Adder just got back from Japan, might be cool to have him talking about his trip. Better yet, you could have a combo with Death Adder and Kazlip both talking about their trips to Japan. Just an idea. How did recording with Jerry go? Have you figured out how long the Monstercast will be? CF here, let's talk about a couple things. My boy digs the NES because he digs video games. And I control the NES games that he experiences. So when he sees the NES, he's seeing Mario Brothers, he's seeing Dr. Mario, he's seeing Super Sprint, he's seeing the games that are worthwhile. I have a few turkeys, but I'm not like, hey, let's gather around the TV and play Quattro Sports or something like that. So he digs it, man. I got to email Carl back. It was awesome hearing from Carl. I'd love to have him on the Monstercast. I sat down with Jerry, and Jerry and I recorded a bit. It was the most I've ever had to edit something since I started TCR in 2009. The most I've ever had to edit. And it's still pretty raunchy. But we did get 48 solid minutes with Jerry Terrifying. I don't think there's any way I'm going to hit the 8-hour mark. But I'm doing the best I can to get some good content together and not just have it be me talking without any break for 8 hours. But this was a good start. The Jerry bit is one I feel like I can hang my hat on, and we can really use as a starting place to build from. So the Monstercast is alive. It is happening. It is going to be good, but it's not going to be 8 hours. It will be longer than a regular podcast. Not quite 8 though. Let's get back to the email. You mentioned that I should get back into YouTube, and that has crossed my mind more than once. I've even created a couple videos I never published. I had this grand idea that I would do a video series on Ark the Lad collection. I even completed the first video. Probably took me in the neighborhood of 30 hours to play through the game again, get the footage, record the audio, and even edit it all together for a 14.5-minute review. I started gathering footage for the next game, Ark the Lad 2. And I was probably at least 5 hours into it when I got distracted and abandoned the project. I didn't want to put anything out there until I finished the trilogy. Maybe one day it'll happen, but that's a big maybe. Alright, CF here. I understand the impulse, but I have to disagree. People liked those first videos you put out way back in the day. And when you took them down, I had people ask me where they went. So I really think you should just put them out there. And the reason I think that is because when you put up that first one, you'll get feedback that you can then incorporate into the next ones. And if you don't finish them, you don't finish them. It's okay. It happens all the time on YouTube. Of course, nobody wants to leave anything undone. But the perfect situation when it comes to making videos, it's just not going to happen. The vision you have and the video you produce are never, ever, ever, ever going to be one and the same. That's just the way it is. It's the way, and it's not just making videos. That's the way art is. That's the way making music is. You know, what you have in your head is not going to be what comes out. The more skilled you are, the more you can influence what comes out to be that way. But it's just not going to happen, especially if you're diving back into making videos for the first time in many, many years. But I hope you pursue it to the point where it comes out because you make good videos and you know stuff about video games that no one else knows. So best of luck with that. Let's get back to the email. He says, I feel you on shopping with the one seller on eBay to save shipping. I've also done that in the past. Metal Storm is over $100. Wow, that escalated quickly. I remember years ago wanting to pick that up, and I think it was around 50, maybe even less. I decided to pass on it. Oh well, I guess I won't be adding that one to my collection anytime soon. I just looked up the loose cartridge on price charting, and it's going for $133.50. I wonder if the Happy Video Game Nerd had anything to do with its rise in popularity, seeing that he featured it as the game on his first video. You briefly noted that you'd buy computer parts before buying Metal Storm. What PC parts did you have in mind? Alright, CF here, let's talk about that. The Happy Video Game Nerd died, and in his place, all that remains is stop skeletons from fighting. So, did he have something to do with the increase in price of Metal Storm? Maybe years ago. I think he might have brought it up. I would say he accelerated the increase of price, but he didn't cause it. The increase of price is caused by that being a little known Nintendo game, and that game just being legit awesome. It's awesome. Awesome game. and the YouTube community would have found it at some point. So you can credit that to him or not. I played that game as a youngster, so I knew that that was a hidden gem before that ever came out. It's a good game. What are you going to do? It's a good game, and there's not many of them out there, so the price is going to go up and up and up and up. As far as PC parts I would buy, I mean, there's many PC parts out there. I'm noticing moments where I'm wishing I had a better video card, but I took a look at video cards, and the next step up is going to be a lot of money. Somebody told me that I could get a better video card for like $200 and get a good card that can do anything. But I'm looking around, and it looks like I'm going to need closer to 1,000 or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot I don't know, and there's a lot of money involved, so I don't know about that. I could always increase my RAM. People say that you can add additional RAM, and you're not going to see much of a performance increase. But it's not a performance increase I'm after per se, but rather than staving off degradation of performance, especially when Windows 7 is involved, because over time that operating system just bloats more and more and more and more. And I need to have some resources left over for my programs. So that's one thing I could do. Apart from that, my computer is a party machine. So I take it on the go. So I'm thinking about getting yet another additional module to add more USB ports on the front to act as like controller plugins. Got a lot of USB ports now. I haven't counted, but I added an expansion card, a PCI expansion to add USB ports in the back. So there's plenty of space for plugs. Those are a couple of things. I'm not super happy with the PC cooling system I have right now because it obscures some of the RAM slots. I have a 4 RAM slot motherboard, and one of them is obscured. So if I were to extend the RAM, I'd have to buy only a single card, which is certainly not ideal. On the other hand, it's running just fine now. It's running. But I'm having space issues. I've got a terabyte hard drive with 100 gigabytes free. I've got half a terabyte Windows partition with 100 gigabytes free as well. My Linux partition's got all the space in the world because I don't play games on it, really. But space is starting to crunch down. So in the future, I might end up getting a third hard drive. I mean, because my motherboard's got plenty of SATA ports on it. My power source can support it. And the thing's already loud, so I'm not worried about sound at this point. So I don't know. Those are just a few ideas. PC parts are like a money pit. You reach a point where it becomes diminishing returns. Like I can spend an extra $100 for this really small benefit. So I don't know. I made the right move, like when I completed this, just immediately going into building a second build, because then I started doing things like buying core components that I ended up getting a lot of benefit out of. But let's get back to the email. Let's see. To answer the question of the week, what is your favorite Game Gear game? Well, I'm going to have to say Shining Force CD. Yes, I know it's a Sega CD game. However, it's a compilation of the 2 Game Gear Shining Force games, Shining Force Gaiden 1 and 2, slapped in a compact disc with some extra content. I bought a Game Gear earlier in my adult life and I never got into it. I eventually sold it. Shining Force CD was probably the most I ever played a Game Gear game. Even with that said, I never beat the first game of the compilation. I probably put about 6 hours into it, and my backup memory cartridge died, and I lost all my progress. I haven't had the motivation to go back into it. Nevertheless, I do remember enjoying it, and it's been in my backlog of games to get back into for a while. CF here, my favorite Game Gear game was Shining Force is probably my favorite, but I also remember playing one of the unnamed Sonic the Hedgehog games. I don't remember which one it was, but I remember the Sonic the Hedgehog games on the Game Gear having the difficulty ramped way, way, way up. To this day, since I collect chess games, I have a copy of Chess Master for the Game Gear. I also have Marble Madness for the Game Gear, but I don't own the unit. I found those for $1 a piece in various locations over the year, and I kept them because, I collect things. So let's get back to the email. Ultima 4 is free on GOG. Ultima 3 Exodus for the NES is the cheaper of the two, but on the Nintendo, but it's still going to run you about $8. That's not too bad, not these days. Commander Keen Goodbye Galaxy is Commander Keen 4, and like you said, it also has the paddle game, which was really random, but I remember liking that minigame as a kid. I did too. You asked how retro, in reference to my question about finding retro video games. I was referring to games on the Dreamcast or earlier, but the last good retro game I found in the wild was when I stumbled across a well-preserved copy of Streets of Rage 2 in the box at a flea market at 2016 for about $5. I was incredibly surprised, as I'd given up a lot of hope of finding good deals again. I don't really collect much anymore for what I consider true retro consoles because things have gotten too expensive. But if I do buy games, it's usually for the PS2, original Xbox, PC, on GOG, on Steam. I like what you said about focusing on the good, and a lot of things have changed for the better in gaming. It's actually cheaper than ever to purchase good games since the advent of digital games, particularly in the many sales that happen throughout the year. Back in the 90s, you could easily spend more than $60 on a console RPG, and $60 is probably closer to $80 in today's currency due to inflation, so yeah, that would have been pretty easy. I don't think you've ever done anything special for a numbered episode. All right, so let's CF here. Let's take a break and respond to some of these things. Yeah, man, you got to focus on the good because there's a lot of bad and there's a lot of good to talk about. And you know what? We're not changing anything in terms of the climate of video games and that sort of thing. I don't really find games out in the wild anymore, but I still find deals when I go to conventions. The problem with convention deals that you dig for is you're not going to find the grail for cheap. 10 years ago when you watched YouTube and people would do their pickup channel videos on channels, they would have stories like, hey, I found this copy of Earthbound for $5. Somebody said that on a video I saw 10 years ago. I was like, I can't believe it. They didn't know what they had. Now that doesn't happen because just because of the way things go. People who owned games as they were a kid and sell them off not knowing what they have. That's been slowly happening over for years and years and years, and there's a finite amount of people who can do that. So we're reaching a point where those people are just kind of going extinct. They've naturally cashed in. So what are you gonna do? It happens. You can still play the games. So it is what it is. I have a nice collection that I can hang my hat on. I don't have any games that are $1 million, but I do have some games that are that cost some good money, and I'm glad I was able to hold on to them. So let's go back to the email. He writes, do you have any, are you into compilations? The original Xbox and PS2 have some good ones. Do you have any favorites or ones that you'd recommend? Take care, my friend. Keep rolling retro. Hamrock. Let's answer your question about compilations. I like them. When you say, am I into them, it kind of sounds like you're also asking, am I knowledgeable about them? And the answer is no. I like arcade sticks, and compilation games go well with arcade sticks. Like if you spend the money, get a PS2 arcade stick, then get compilations to go with it, for sure. I have a couple of sparse ones. I've got the Midway Arcade Classics on the original Xbox, but I don't think I ever booted it up, even once. I got it from MagFest several years ago. I decided to sock it away in case I ever got an original Xbox arcade stick to pair it up with, and I never played it. Looks like a good one. I don't know. I would say Sega Genesis compilations are every system's got one. The PS2 Sega Genesis compilation, I've heard stories about it having bad sound emulation. So much so that my good friend Engie, that particular compilation soured him on Genesis compilations across all systems because the sound is really important to him. He's like, Xbox 360 one came out and they fixed all that, but he was still like, you know what, the sound isn't exactly right, so I can't do it. I got to go with original hardware. Now, me personally, I don't have that hang up because as a child, I was not a Sega fan. I didn't have until adulthood. So I would say get yourself a Sega Genesis collection on something. I kind of want that one on the original Xbox, especially... Oop, hang on a second. I just received a text message. Let's see what it is. It's a reminder on eBay. You know what? We're on the air. Let's see what I'm being reminded about on eBay. Because I think it's video game related. And it's the collection. How about that? I couldn't have asked for better timing. It's the Pac-Man collection on Game Boy Advance that I have a buy it now on watch for this. They want $2.50 for it and another $3 shipped. So that's $5.50 for the Pac-Man collection. I had that not as a kid, but when I was about 20. Which, geez Louise, that was 13 years ago. That was one of a few games I had for the Game Boy Advance. I loaned. The story goes, I found my Game Boy Advance at that time. I found on the street. There were some potheads on one side of the street in a circle, and somebody dropped their Game Boy Advance in the gutter, and I had a copy of Mario Kart in it, and I picked it up, and it was mine. I held on to it for a couple of years, and I loaned it to a friend of mine so his little brother could play it on the plane going somewhere, and I never got it back. That was one of the games that never came back with it. I remember it being good if you like Pac-Man. Also, every system's got a Namco museum. The Namco Museum on the Game Boy Advance has been a favorite of mine for many, 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 many years. Also, hey, while we're on the subject of compilations for portable games, you know what else is really good? The Game & Watch galleries on the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. Not much for the Game & Watch games, but the galleries got a lot of stuff to play, especially the one that came out on the Game Boy Advance. It's like Game & Watch Gallery 3 or something like that. They remade the games with what was modern graphics at the time, so you have nice, beautiful GBA 2D spriting to make up what games that are based off of Game Boy Advance games, and they just end up being really solid Nintendo-based mini games, which are great. You know, they end up being they end up not feeling like Game & Watch games. They end up feeling like good mini games, and there's a bunch of them on there. That's a good one. That's a good one that goes for cheap. As a matter of fact, since I have eBay open, wait, that's on my phone. I don't like tape on my phone. I don't know how much it costs. You're gonna have to look it up. I know they're not super expensive. So those are a few. They're all portable. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what. Let's see. Let me go back to the email and see if did he mention the system? Original Xbox, PS2. Those are just a few. I don't really know a whole lot about compilations. Those are just really the ones I do know about. So yeah, if you have any, let me know what you have, and we'll compare notes. I'm a fan of the Namco Museum series, even though it's usually just the same several games over and over again. But yeah, I like them. You know, here's another one I got. The 6-pack on Sega Genesis. That's a compilation, right? That counts. I've played that a lot over the years, right? That has the original Streets of Rage on it, as well as some of the Sonic, one of the Sonic games. I don't know. I got to dust it off. My Genesis has been on ice for a little while. That's the end of that huge email. Let's see. I want to check the quality of the recording to make sure we're still recording okay. Jeez Louise, we are 1 hour and 27 minutes in, and I'm not even done yet. He wrote a follow-up to that I want to read. So give me a second here. I'm going to look it up. Failbag Early Edition Director's Cut. Oh, wait. Hang on a second. All right. He wrote it, by the way. Hey CF, know the email was a long one. Feel free to only use part of it or none at all. No, man, we're doing the whole thing. We got to get that deluxe edition. With that said, I do have one more question relating to RPG Maker games. Do you have any RPG Maker game recommendations, either free or commercial games? Not many. RPG Maker games tend to be slop, or not slop. Slop's the wrong word, because they're not bad. They just tend to be a little slushy, meaning they have a very amateurish feel, which I love, but they tend to blend together and feel a little on the generic side. However, there was one game I played that stood out called She Comes, and it's not a dirty thing. It was supposed to be a scurry game. As a matter of fact, I'm going to head over to... Was that VX Ace or not? I just remember it being like a horror-themed game that was easy but had some good thematic elements to it and was really well done. She Comes, RPG Maker. Ringy dingy. What's that? Sim City apparently wants to get my attention. Sim City on the phone. Okay. I found the listing, rpgmaker.net. It was a VX Ace game. Now I'm going to head over to, I believe if it made it onto the, let's see, VX Ace. It's not a game, it's going to be software. So I'm heading to the community hub in Steam. I'm going to look up to see if it's in the workshop, because I think it is. She Comes. It is, yeah, by Doomage. Let me go ahead and subscribe to that. It's a good game. It's got a picture of a mirror on the title screen, like a vanity mirror. Oh boy. Alright, my throat hurts. We are an hour and 29 minutes in. This is almost the longest podcast I've ever done. I think the longest is an hour and 35 or an hour and 37 or something like that. This is pushing it. So whatever is going on in your life that has brought you here, ladies and gentlemen, I hope it's going well. I hope it's going wood. Wow, I hope it's going wood. I hope your life is going wooden. I hope you have a wooden, solid, oaken life. God bless. I'm rooting for you. Have a great week.